real time. When you're done, you click stop and you're done working on that work order and the next job gets assigned to you. Just makes it really easy and intuitive. Many less clicks than years prior. So, bottom line here, expanding the use of, your fleet management system to drivers and operators alike, allows for the collection of a wealth of additional pertinent information, and there's significant value in the ability of your shop personnel to be able to communicate directly with drivers in the field. So from optimizing fleet and efficiency, performance, data is everything, is the bottom line. and having a fleet system that supports intuitive, easy entry of all the necessary supporting metadata is paramount, right? For example, from a manual entry perspective, can the technicians seamlessly enter, the data, post parts, labor, commercial, but at the same time through configuration and automation, all of the necessary metadata, things like markups, taxes, overtime, downtime, delays, priorities, right? All of that is then automatically recorded again, just through workflows defined. And then from a data perspective, your ability to have tools that can load, all of this data in bulk, right? Or modify or purge data in bulk when you're managing all of this data, these large data sets that they grow over time. And of course, security, right, is always top of mind. And can your fleet management system solution, employ end-to-end encryption of the data that you're accruing, right? Data, at rest and in transit. And from that infrastructure deployment view, your data may be secured, but are the fleet management systems that you employ, like the access rights, configurable enough that any given user only has the level of access to data that he or she needs, right? You're not over-granting access to data, and you're not restricting them from doing their job because they don't have access to data, and finding that sweet spot. And, if data is automatically ingested through integrations, how are those data errors addressed, right? It's life, errors happen, but being able to automatically catch errors and move those to some queue to be addressed manually by an individual, at a later date is important to be able to do that versus just losing that data into the ether. Are you able to generate unlimited key performance indicators against your data, right? And reports data within the system. So if the data is in the system and you can think of a question regarding that data, you should be able to build a report against it or a KPI, whether it's using the tools provided within that solution or having the ability to use any third-party reporting tool that you're comfortable with. And are, the integration protocols plentiful, right? Does your fleet management system support APIs, flat files, ODBC, staging tables, right? And any general industry standard protocols to accommodate the technologies of external systems. So, and are you able to easily export the data out of the system, right? To support, larger organizational data lakes. For example, you should be able to go into the system, easily filter on a screen for a set of data, and with the click of the button to be able to export out to some comma delimited file or tab delimited file. Or leveraging APIs, be able to extract data through a comprehensive set of endpoints that are available to you, right? Or invoke some scheduled task, right, that would bulk load data to an external data lake based, again, on your organizational needs. So in the end, data is king, right? But being able to address, analyze, report against, and share that data is just as critical, and be able to do it in an easy, intuitive, seamless fashion. So while data is king, having access to that data in a fleet-centric single source of truth reduces time to identify and collect data otherwise, from disparate sources, right? Thus, removing data silos, right? And knowing that everybody is working from the same information and assumptions inherently improves, processes, accessibility, and control, right? Transparency and data accuracy. So to do this, a fleet management system must support, multiple means of integration. Spoke a little bit before, but, while APIs are the standard tool today, many industry standard protocols and legacy protocols do exist. So it's important a fleet management system support many or most of those industry integration protocols, as external systems often do not. So So having that flexibility to use multiple different protocols improves your chances of being able to easily integrate, data with the necessary third-party systems. And as your single source of data set grows, so too does your ability to make informed decisions, right? And align goals across organization, because all of your, because you're all working from the same centralized reference point, right? And these data shouldn't just be recorded for vehicle details, right? Fleet employee data related to human resources or CDLs or tests or certifications and employee satisfaction surveys, right? They all play a critical role into the effective operations of your overall fleet department. And also, important data to capture may revolve around inventory management, not just like, what's on hand, but the processes in which you manage and deliver inventory to individuals, right? Short and long-term rentals activities of vehicles and how those operations occur. Not just the fact that you're doing that, but just getting insight is what was the right vehicle that somebody maybe should have reserved or what have you. Registration details, special fees, leases, insurance, warranties, right? The list goes on and on about all the metadata that you can accrue around managing fleet operations. Knowing your customer, drivers and operators of vehicles and equipment is equally important. Maintaining current data, tracking their requirements and their needs to perform their job responsibilities, and ensuring that the proper assets and supporting tools and equipment are available when needed, right? And obviously, having this information and leveraging and actioning it so that things are available when needed improves efficiencies, but it also reduces frustration and it fosters strong relationships with your coworkers. So some of this, may seem like unnecessary metadata, but it can be critical in making fleet right-sizing decisions and implementing new programs and being able to justify those decisions. For example, through telematics data, you may be able to identify clearly underutilized vehicles, right? And these vehicles can then be shifted over to a motor pool operation. Or understanding fleet-wide usage behaviors may lead to a decision to like implement a brand new motor pool operation, right? You get the most bang for your buck to manage your assets that way. But if the fleet department does not have access to the telemetry data, because, as often is the case, the department doesn't own the tool, a fleet manager would never be able to make these determinations. It's not uncommon. A given organization owns 3 or more different telematics solutions, right? There are specific use cases for snow management, waste management, police. They all have these unique telemetry needs. But even if all of those unique systems are necessary in the organization, if you can collect the relevant fleet management data through integrations into your fleet-centric single source of truth, many of these insights wouldn't be missed. The importance of data-driven decisions, right? Paramount. And if, robust, accurate, comprehensive data sets, exist, in a single database, your ability to then make sound, defensible, data-driven decisions is greatly increased. And effort to support and improve data-driven decisions, it's important your system collect data from multiple disparate sources, right? I referenced telematics and a couple others, but also, there can be fuelmatics or fuel systems, DVIR processes, TPMS systems, fluid systems, right? And industry metrics outside of day-to-day operations from the likes of OEMs and NAFA and APWA and NHTSB, or, and then, through your ability, effective reporting tools to analyze all of these parameters, it just inherently leads to improved efficiencies. One example, telematics data, may expose, grossly inefficient routes taken between jobs, or what people are doing in between jobs, right? And if people are going from one side of the town to the other when there was another job maybe that was less than a mile away, that leads to excessive energy consumption and, more frequent maintenance activities, and that leads to potential more downtime and ultimately, a higher cost per usage valuation. But, uncovering the inefficient route, or common routes taken on daily activities, could be resolved by adopting practices that then assign crews to the next closest job, right, from where they're physically located, and to be able to use maps and GIS incorporated into fleet management fleet management systems can help, facilitate those processes. So, and activating such processes would inherently lead to cost reductions, right? Through now you're using less energy consumption, reduced wear and tear, less PTO engagement. But if you're not analyzing the data from all the sources, making it easy to analyze by incorporating all the data into a single repository, the small adjustment, would go unnoticed, and you wouldn't be able to recognize those savings. So, as the saying goes, right, you can't manage what you can't measure, but also assuming your measurements are sound, right? Decision driven, by objective evidence, they're always defensible over intuition alone. And while I think, personal intuition will always play a role, still important are the insights derived from sometimes, non-intuitive but objective data. Okay, to potentially be able to correlate and demonstrate unsafe driving behavior, with increased maintenance, right? It's not something you can do, managing two disparate systems. They really must be integrated. And where driver behavior issues may be identified through telematic systems, the ability within the fleet management system, right, to administer trainings, tests, certifications, all in effort to document that driver behavior improvements, are tangibly related to corrective actions, and in turn vehicle operation cost savings. It's important to be able to do that. Over time, these corrective actions, they can be demonstrated to reduce frequency of accidents through miles per incident statistics. And another example of data-driven decisions through data procured from disparate systems is you might have two of the exact same, F-550 truck or whatever the rig is. But one of them, if used regularly off-road, winter conditions, and the other is underutilized in a city setting, these assets would have, significantly different life cycles. And not collecting all the metadata around those same assets usage, the upfitting information, the repair history, all the fueling data, the telematics, and crew data, right? Interviewing crews and how they use it and understanding the specific crew use of a vehicle, right? And getting all of those sources, not having all that data from the different sources, would lead planners to make incorrect assumptions. And so you might get one vehicle that's replaced too soon and another too late. Same vehicle though. So it's important planners incorporate all the data possible when performing, Defender Challenger models to make repair replace decisions, as well as derive as accurate as possible target versus non-target projected maintenance costs. Okay, so the question is asked, why not let data dictate when a vehicle should be serviced, right? The blending of fleet-centric asset management systems with telematic solutions, right, has led to the deployment of these new predictive maintenance tools, right? Extremely large data sets allow for inferences to be made, that could be made otherwise, predicting when a component of an asset is likely to fail based on environmental parameters, the asset role, right, and how its part history compared with many thousands of other like assets. So from such inferences, service requests or work orders can automatically be created and notifications sent. This means that the elements of longstanding established class PM programs can be rethought, and the net effect is less dollars are needed for preventative maintenance activities, lowering the total cost of ownership, and simultaneously lessening downtime. So as it relates to asset utilization, all fleets operate differently, and the utilization of any given asset varies widely. And the necessity to maintain a given asset, despite whatever its overall utilization is, also varies greatly among organizations. But nonetheless, the ability to be able to analyze your fleet's unique utilization goals and do so, with any metric you define and having access to that data, right? The data itself is objective, but as long as it's accurate, they can be used to justify the subjective decisions, derived from them. Sorry. So, okay, I just want to switch over to a few, real world examples. And actually, apologize. Did I apologize? Okay, thought I skipped over a slide there. A couple of real world examples. For 17 years, the city of Oklahoma has used Fleet Focus, but until recently, technicians had to actually share computers. Lines would literally form to enter in work order details and other fleet related data. And needless to say, the water cooler effect was in full force. And modernizing the user interface to support phones and tablets allowed technicians to enter their work activities in real time while actually working on the vehicles, right? And the net impact of not having to wait for a computer and the small time savings of not walking back and forth between the bays, back and forth between two from the bays, the city's downtime was lessened by more than 2 hours a day. And today, tablets are essentially consumables, right? And the AssetWorks Edge interface, for example, can be used from any modern device, phone, tablet, laptop, whatever it may be. It improves efficiencies with streamlined touch-based workflows. And, it supports, functions like voice activation features, right? The ability to dictate notes. A lot of folks have a hard time, typing on those QWERTY key points on their phone. So you can just speak those notes and speak to search and to look up assets and to look up work orders. So, and understanding there can be, factors considered like, unions mandating compensation for employees to use a personal device. Nonetheless, allowing employees to bring their own device lowers the barrier, to easily interact with an organization's modern fleet management system. And it seems somewhat self-evident, but the act of printing, handling, sharing, and moving paper slows work processes down, right? And as is the case, with anything paper-based work orders, paper can be lost or damaged, especially in a shop environment. But for years, the city of Minot was doing just that, right? And they were doing that through a system that was not even designed or fleet requirements taken into consideration. So in modernizing by deploying a fleet-centric solution and adopting, electronic processes and being able to work from a phone or tablet, now when somebody brings a vehicle in, that service writer can immediately open a service request or work order, immediately assign it to an available technician, right? And that technician then can take that, electronically, right, instantly shows up on their iPad or their tablet device. And the technician can immediately perform their work activities, never having to see a piece of paper. And by adopting the electronic workflows, Minot was able to, improve compliance, reduce data entry errors, and automate the collection, right? And reporting of data points such as asset downtime, delays, and utilization. These were all processes that used to take many weeks or months to collect and aggregate that data. These steps, they streamline human processes, but when you marry them with the electronic workflows, with vehicle telematics, predictive analytics, and other techniques is when you really start to see the efficiency soar. Perry and Sons, they use mobile fuel tankers, and other than writing it down on a piece of paper, there was no accounting for fuel going into ag equipments in the field. And with many seasonal employees, it was hard to track, which individuals were fueling assets. And again, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So by implementing a mobile solution to track fuel transactions a lot electronically in the field, Perry and Sons, can see now for any asset who fueled it, when, what fuel type was entered, and at what cost, right? Previous insights were limited to how much fuel did we buy from a local vendor, right? And now, inclusive of all the transaction details, insights, regarding the potential misuse of fuel or perhaps identify poor performing assets, burning too much fuel, can be gleaned almost immediately. So to recap, in the end, you want to be able to collect accurate data from as many sources as possible, right? And whether it be manual entry or full automation of data, it should reside in a single source of truth. And a single source of truth that is intuitive to use, easily accessible, and all given proper access rights. And, you want your system to be easily capable of sharing data, right? And developing any conceivable report, right? And then being able to present and justify those inferences of the data, having confidence, having confidence that the data is accurate and comprehensive. So again, regardless of the constantly evolving and changing fleet landscape, it's the ability to manage from a single source, a comprehensive and accurate set of data. It goes a long way in future-proofing your fleet. So those are my thoughts and comments for the day. I will hand it over to Mary Ellen with any questions and go from there.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Jim. All right, everyone. So like Jim said, we're going to open up the floor for some of your questions. So as a reminder, if you have any more questions at the time, please use the WebEx chat tool on your screen. If we have enough time, I'll pass your question to Jim and he'll be happy to give you an answer. But Jim, we did have a couple questions come through. The first one being, if you had to speculate, how do you see AI tools impacting fleet in the next few years?
Excuse me. There's many ways it could. I would say, one, the evolution or continued evolution of predictive tools, right? There are things like brakes and state of battery that are the low-hanging fruit for those predictive tools. But as the data models get trained more and more, you're going to see more specific, parts of a vehicle that are going to start exposing, that kind of information. So it's just an evolution of predictive tools. I think initially, what would be a low-hanging fruit in terms of applying something against a fleet management system is the ability to use natural language to create reports, right? So I might be able to speak whatever information I want, and it could automatically just spit out a nice, pretty picture and the raw data supporting that graph, gauge, or chart. Or say you're looking for a particular metric, KPI, and you could speak or write that, and it would write the select statement that you could then run directly against the database to be able to do that. So those are the kinds of things, I mentioned. They're available effectively today. It's just the engineering task of applying those, to fleet management systems.
Great, thanks, Jim. Another question came in. Are you or is AssetWorks going to be attending either NAFA or GFX coming up?
Yes, both. We will both be there. I will be at both.
Okay, perfect. I think people might be asking you questions on site at those shows. All right, perfect. And it looks like that's all the time we have for questions today. So I would like to thank you all again for attending today's presentation. Hopefully you've secured some valuable takeaways to keep in mind moving forward. Jim, I would like to thank you on behalf of AssetWorks once again for sharing your expertise with everyone today. If you guys have any other questions, then definitely reach out to Jim or anyone on the AssetWorks team. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a great day, and we look forward to having you with us next time.
Thank you, Marianne. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I'm going to stop the recording.